Back here at the Combine in Indianapolis, joined now by new Cowboys defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator, Derrick Ansley. Derrick, thanks so much for the time. First of all, what have these past couple of weeks been like, and what was the process like when you interviewed with Christian Parker and the Cowboys to ultimately get here, and how does his vision marry with what you want to do?
Man, it's been awesome, I guess, 2+ weeks now. We kind of hit the ground running. The interview process was amazing, very thorough, which I can respect. Coach Shotty was very, due diligent in the interview process. We got a chance to touch a lot of different people in the organization, from Will McClay to, some of the assistant coaches to some of the support staff. So it's very thorough that way. Getting a chance to work with Christian has really been a dream, come true. We've known each other for 10+ years now. We're both secondary coaches by nature, so we've always talked ball, and we see things the same way. Just excited to help him get this thing off the ground.
You mentioned all of you guys being secondary guys, yourself, Christian, Ryan Smith as well. What is that trio and marriage going to look like in terms of how you develop the back end of this defense?
Yeah, I think it was very strategic of who we hired in the secondary to be the brain trust. I think Christian's kind of had a couple guys on his radar, and if he ever gets his shot, I think you kind of see the product of that with myself and Ryan and Robert Muschamp. So it's been really good to get guys that see the game the way you see it. Coach for the right reasons. They have servant hearts for the players. That's our only goal. Just come here and try to help our players be the best they can be. In the same step, trying to help Christian be the best that he can be and ultimately help us win championships.
You've learned from a lot of coaches over your career, but Nick Saban is one of the guys that a lot of people point to as one of the better defensive backs developers ever. When you were at Alabama, what are some of the things that you plucked from him that you still use nowadays in your coaching style?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to work for Coach 2 separate occasions. One occasion, I was a graduate assistant with the secondary, so I got a chance to see it from that lens. And then 4 or 5 years later, I came back to be the actual secondary coach to work with him. So he's in every meeting. He's very much involved in the secondary. Things I've taken with him, some of the core values of, playing man-to-man the right way, tackling the right way, communicating. Some of the daily drills that we did back then, we still do now. We've added some remixes to them. But the core values of being physical, tackling, and having size at the position are some of the core values I've taken with me.
When you look at this roster from a defensive back's perspective, 2 corners that have stood out, Savone Revel, their rookie third-round pick from last year, and Deron Bland, who had the record for most pick sixes in a single season a few years ago. What do you make of those 2 guys, and what do you feel like you and this staff can do to get even more out of them going forward?
Yeah, I've known Bland. I've been in the league now his whole career. Eval'd him when he came out. Same thing with Savone. When he came out last year, when I was at my last job, we brought him on a visit. So we've known about him as well. His college coach is actually a guy that I've known for a while. We share some similar experiences in our background. So just look forward to pouring into those guys. Getting to know the man first, tapping through that layer, getting to know him, what makes him tick, what's his goals and aspirations, laying all that out, and then developing the football player. Because I believe if you touch the man and you get to know him as a person, I think the football will come along at a good pace.
One of the things that Brian Schottenheimer was very clear about in this whole process when he was hiring Christian and when he's hiring the rest of the staff is they wanted teachers and guys who can really teach this game and simplify complex matters for players. What's your style of teaching, and how do you approach trying to take difficult things that are very complex in NFL language and make it easy for your players to understand so they can go and play fast?
Well, the first thing is words matter. How you deliver words, how much information you give a player, how much can they digest, are they ready to digest those things that you're giving them? And everybody's different. You have to touch different players in different ways, whether that be a meeting aspect, a walkthrough setting, whether that's watching somebody else that they know do it the right way or do it wrongly. Different people learn different ways, so we have to do a really good job of getting to know the player, learning the learner, and then tapping into the best way that he learns and effectively giving him the information that way.
Last one here for you. We're at the NFL Combine, so a chance for you. You talked about some of those meetings you've had in the past with guys like Savone. You're in front of now this next crop of future NFL athletes. What does a Derrick Ansley player look like? Whether it be the physical traits, the mental traits, what do you want guys that are going to play for you to look like? Yeah,
and first off, you want guys that are tough. You want guys that are heavy-handed, guys that have size, competitive spirit, competitive stamina, guys that want to be great. Self-starters, self-motivated, and the guys that want to compete. We want guys that want to compete down in, down out against the best athletes in the world, who they have to defend in their job description. And they have to have a short-term memory to go out there and win those downs when called upon. So the main thing is toughness. We want guys that want to be tough, tackle, compete, and everything else to take care of itself.
Derrick Ansley, welcome to Dallas. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right, what's up, Cowboys Nation? Nicole Hutchison here at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis, Indiana, joined by secondaries coach Ryan Smith. And Ryan, we're going to start because I know we were mentioning off camera the journey of you and now defensive coordinator Christian Parker. So just talk about the story about how you guys became friends, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. Like we both from Virginia. He went to Richmond. I went to William and Mary. Rival schools, so we always end our season at William & Mary with Richmond. Both played defensive back, so we got connected that way. And then we both pledged Kappa Alpha Psi. So, us being in the same frat, we were able to connect at an early age. And we both got into coaching, so we, stayed plugged in, kept helping ourselves out with development and, being a resource for each other. And our relationship has grown. Never worked together on the same staff, but we've always respected how we both approached our work. Yeah. So, it's a blessing to be here in Dallas, working with him.
And the opportunity came that, you were going to be working with him on his staff. What was it about his vision that you were excited about to enable to take this opportunity?
Well, the belief that he has and what the Philly defense showed on tape with him. Yeah. Everywhere he's been, the brand, the style of ball that they played, it shows and pops off on film. So, me being in Arizona the last 3 years, watching crossover tape, I know the style of defense that he plays, and I've always I wanted to be a part of it. And, when the opportunity came, it was a no-brainer for me.
What are some of the things for Cowboys fans who don't necessarily know your coaching philosophy? What are some of the things that you've taken from coaches you've played under or coached under?
All right, that's a good question. My coaching philosophy, and I've kind of molded it as I've gone along. Number one is trust. Getting the players, to trust me, trust how I'm going to coach them, and then really develop that relationship. Two is passion. So being able to be passionate about my work and show up on a daily basis to get those guys better. And then the third thing really is the drive. The drive to work hard, to push those guys to be and achieve things that they couldn't achieve on their own.
Yeah.
So.
What's something that stood out to you when you look back at the 2025 Dallas Cowboys secondary safety tape? What's something that stood out to you?
Stood out to me? I mean, there's plays that were out there that were left on the table. Yeah. But I think that, with all 11 fitting into the scheme that CP is going to instill with our guys, the 3-4 structure, being able to get to nickel and 4-down structures in different situations. I think it fits the guys that we have. They'll be able to play fast, play instinctive, use their traits to put themselves in good positions, and I think you'll see a different product.
Now, the word that's been thrown around is being multiple, something that Christian Parker preached about in his opening press conference. Brian Schottenheimer's talked about it. How valuable is being multiple or versatile for that safety position, especially when you guys are looking to add so many pieces to that position?
Right. Well, multiplicity is hard because hard for an offense, right? You need to be able to, especially from the shell and tilt that we're going to be playing with, you got to be able to do multiple things out of the same look because offenses are too good, right? So, what you're looking for from the safety spot, whether it's a different coverage variation, a front variation, a different technique variation that you've got to play with, having, I say, a lot of clubs in your bag, using a golf analogy, you got to be able to do different things to give yourself an advantage. Yeah. So being able to bring that into the safety room, into the secondary is going to be a huge advantage for us.
And having a huge advantage as well of being a good teacher, that's something that that has been kind of thrown around as well, something that all of you guys have in common on the defensive staff. What are some ways, or tell me a story that illustrates how you teach your guys and develop your guys?
That's a good question. So I was, business degree at William & Mary, and then I got my master's at Penn State in educational leadership. So I was GAing at Penn State, but while I did that, I was taking master's classes at night, and I was with future superintendents, principals, people that are in higher ed. And I was able to learn like different strategies and different techniques in the classroom setting and in educational setting to get guys, you know, locked in and retain information. And, you know, I've been able to incorporate that everywhere I've went. And, you know, I think things that have helped me out, you know, I would say when I was at Northwestern in 2022, you're dealing with the smartest student athletes that you could ever imagine. They're Ivy League caliber student athletes. So it challenged me on a daily basis to come into that meeting room prepared, be ready to teach. I felt like a professor. You could have called me Professor Smith. You know, the way that I just attacked that meeting room preparation and got those guys to, you know, really buy in. And you got to be creative. You can't just click on the film. You've got to organize and structure your meeting. It's like a lesson plan. You know, you've got to give guys small snippets of breaks, you know, flash a movie scene real quick to recapture guys' attention, and you know, throw a GIF in there to you know, make things associate with the teaching that you're doing, and then get guys in front of the room and get guys to not only just regurgitate the information, but teach it to the younger guys.
Learn it,
there's different styles, and for me, like really learning the guys in my room and how they learn, how they retain information, you know, how they're comfortable in a classroom setting. Do they need to meet extra one-on-one? Are they better in the morning, in the afternoon? Does voiceovers help? You know, but really knowing the individual guy, tapering my instructional style to that person, and then when we're in the meeting style, or the full meeting with everybody, being able to teach in a way that's going to be I guess digestible for everybody.
Yeah. Okay. And you talked about you being a teacher, but you're also kind of learning as well a lot about these guys in this 2026 NFL draft class. What has stood out to you the most about these guys?
The guys you talking about in the draft?
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're kind of now starting to dive deep into the draft guys, because you know, like the process of the cycle is, you know, we just got the job a couple weeks ago. I'm trying to learn my players, who we have, and then you turn the page and look at, okay, these are the available free agents, because free agency hits first. So, you know, our exposure to these guys at the combine is really the kind of the preliminary exposure. So like, I'm just excited to dive into those guys and learn just their background, their information, and then we'll evaluate the tape and see if they're a fit from the tape perspective. But right now we're trying to figure out capacity. Does he have the capacity to learn and grow? And then character. You know, is this a guy that we want to wear the star and is going to flourish as a Dallas Cowboy?
All right, well, I'm looking forward to it, the staff and the players that you guys put together on this roster. So thank you so much, and welcome to the Dallas Cowboys.
Thank you.